Nadine Wellwood. Just wanted to check in today on a couple of things that have been going on. I've had some people that have inquired a little bit about economically where they think things are going and have asked some questions. And the Cargill plant that's been shut down here in Alberta, sometimes it's difficult to explain economically, especially when you're talking on a global perspective, the impact, because things happen and we don't necessarily see the outcome or the result of the cause until months, in some cases years down the road. And people don't often draw the correlation between A and B, especially with such a large time frame in between. But one of the things I've been warning people about is inflation that will happen as a result of the interruptions in the global supply chain. And we're going to see that around the world. And I've been telling some of my friends, if there's those things that you import today that you are particularly tied to or like, you may want to pick them up. And I think a good example of that, and something that in the shorter term you're going to see the result of, namely, I think meat prices and things going up, or the Cargill plant having to reduce its production or close, I do believe now. So just watch for things like that you see happening, and think about that now from a global perspective in the global supply chain, where China is the one that has been mass producing so many of our goods, whether it's furniture, medicines, some of our food, a lot of those things. And you're going to see, I think in the shorter term with this Cargill plant and meat prices locally, what I think the impact will be over the long term from the global supply chain. So just trying to give people some real life examples of what they can be looking for to kind of see what the impacts of, A produces B. I also want to comment on the situation in Nova Scotia. What a horrendous act. Unbelievable, especially for a Canadian city, especially Nova Scotia. Just no one is prepared for anything like that. And my heart goes out to the families and the victims, the RCMP officer who died, in the line of duty, truly is a hero. I do want to comment, though, that the situation we are in today with COVID and quarantine and isolation, this is an unprecedented scenario. And the unprecedented scenario often produces very unprecedented reactions. And I think the longer we see stuff like this go on, I think we may have to prepare ourselves that some people are just going to become unhinged. And we may see more acts like this happen. I think no matter what happens economically down the road, when this does settle down and we see economic fallout, I think we need to be prepared for the fact that just like in the 30s, we saw, more suicides, more alcohol, more abuse, and people just don't know how to deal with these types of scenarios. So unfortunately, I think, we may see more acts like this, regrettably, and I hope I'm wrong. But, if you think about people who spend time in isolation, they're not the same afterwards. So, let's hope this ends quickly and we can get our lives back to normal a little bit more. I also want to talk lastly today about the power grab here in Alberta by our Premier, Jason Kenney. I was so very disappointed, and I didn't talk about it when it originally happened. Bill 10. Bill 10 basically gives Cabinet and Jason Kenney unilateral power to make decisions without consulting members. And we have representatives that represent the people of Alberta for a reason. It's not a dictatorship. And this grab for power, if this was, when the Prime Minister, made this attempt, the Conservatives were all up in arms. The premiers themselves would never have allowed the federal government to have this kind of control for this amount of time, and yet it's somehow okay for Jason Kenney to take advantage of the situation in Alberta today for his own purpose of achieving more power. This, I think, is an absolute despicable act, and I think this is not what Jason Kenney was elected for. And people go, oh, don't be too critical. He's doing a good job. Look at oil prices, you know, the demands. There's so many things, Jason Kenney, that we could be doing today that could improve the situation here in Alberta. And one of them is getting a little bit less dependent upon oil and gas. I understand it's a big part of our economy. I understand it does need some assistance, and we need to get it back up and running functionally and efficiently. However, we also need to start looking at diversifying the economy here. Oil and gas can't be the only thing. Texas learned this lesson back in the 80s. Why didn't Alberta do something a little bit similar and become a little less reliant on one single industry? There's things we can do. You're cozying up to the Prime Minister. You may think that that's playing politics. I think a lot of Albertans are looking at that and going, you're selling us out. And I don't disagree. There are things that you could be doing that you do not need permission to be doing tomorrow. And one of the things, and I've said it before, why is Alberta not collecting its own tax revenues? And the tax collection and collecting our own tax revenues asks the Prime Minister, the federal government, if they want money from Alberta, well, you have to come ask for it. Why are we allowing them still to collect our revenues and then us have to beg for our own money back? So there's things that need to be done, should be done, and there are things that could be done today that you do not need permission. You do not need a referendum. You do not need more fair panel meetings or anything. You could be doing them now. And it's time. Alberta, more than ever, needs to become more self-sufficient, as does Canada need to become more self-sufficient. And there's actions that need to be taken, and it's time for you to step up to the plate and be the premier that you said you were going to be, and start making some tough decisions, and stop playing games and politics with the federal government, and start doing what's right for the people of Alberta. So it's time, and it's time to do it now. So I'm hoping that more and more people are going to speak out and speak up for what they believe and force the hand if necessary. I think Jason Kenney doesn't really necessarily believe he has any competition or somebody who's willing to come up against him in the next election. The UCP apparently is broke. They're going to be looking for money. Well, I wouldn't be so certain that you're not going to see some real competition come up in the next provincial election that will give Jason Kenney a run for its money, and hopefully somebody who will stand up and do what's right for Alberta and what's right for Albertans. And Jason Kenney, I'm sorry, you're just not living up to the expectation of so many Albertans, and it's time to either start doing what needs to be done or realize the fact that, well, maybe you may not be there the next time around. Anyway, that's it for today. And if you like the video, please do share it with your friends, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the little bell notification. Until next time, bye.